maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the name of the piece, Gnizo, and where that came from, and maybe what it means literally, but also in terms of the piece.
Right, right. Gnizo is a Syriac word. So Syriac is a language that's spoken in the Levant, parts of the Middle East. It's a very old language. It's very close to Aramaic. So it's one of the Semitic languages like Hebrew and Arabic. Um, and it refers to part of a liturgy from the Syrian Orthodox Church, or the Antiochian Church, and it is also a word that means invisible. That's translated as invisible. And I had been listening to these hymns for some time, on and off for a long time. I knew of the church where these were recorded. Actually, this is an old Smithsonian Folkways Archives recording that I had bought a few years ago, and not realizing that they were recorded at this church that I used to go to, which is out in rural Syria, part of a convent. And so hearing them now, during the pandemic, I would just put my headphones on and just let the ambience of this, large stone space, and with this choir singing, just kind of wash over me. And so I thought about one of the hymns, which is called Gnizo, and the meaning of the word invisible, and how um, that might be something I would take to heart in writing this piece. This idea of I suppose memories, and things that sort of keep us strong uh, throughout difficult times.
Can you talk a little bit about that feeling, like what it feels like to be in that space and to hear maybe did you get to hear any of that type of music in that space or only the recording?
Well, we kind of had a mixed upbringing as children. We're a Christian family. We were baptized Greek Orthodox, but my mother took us to a Catholic church in Syria. So, so I was very confused. The Antiochian church tradition is different. It's older, very beautiful, and I do remember when we went to the village of Sednaya, which is where the monastery is, and which has a beautiful chapel built into this old stone building, where these recordings were made, I guess in the early 1980s, according to the archives. But I remember going in there and just being awed by the silence of of that place, and these old, beautiful, who knows how old, hundreds of years old, hand drawn icons of the saints and Mary and Jesus, and the candles and the lights and this sort of dim lighting. It was all very, very mysterious. But you felt this sense of peace, this sense of protection from the outside world, and that's something that memory has stayed with me, and I suppose I was trying to channel some of that. So when I listened to these recordings, I thought about, hymns, the comfort that they offer. I mean, the comfort in communal prayer and communal singing. They're predictable forms, right? They might be an 8-bar phrase, or something, a 10-bar phrase. The melody repeats. Maybe there's a B section. Usually, if it is, it's quite short, and it's always, they're well crafted so that they're really memorable, right? How can I build my composition that's really steeped into the structure, the form of repetition, the form of trying to sort of calm the mind? But at the same time, I looked for very subtle places to change it, at certain, important structural places. So in a way, you almost wouldn't feel these subtle changes, but they were there. The structure of what we compose and play is very important, emotional, I guess, medium.
maybe you could just talk a little bit about um, the instruments that you chose for Piero to play or for the piece.
Right. Whenever I write something for a percussionist, I usually just sort of ask them, well, what have you got? What's in your what's in your tool bag? And here it was a case where Piero got on Zoom and he said, well, I have this and I have that and we could try this. And so once I made a list of what he owned and what was available, and out of those things, what were the sounds that would work for what I wanted. And specifically, I just was interested in resonance. I wanted things that would just sustain for quite a long time. I also let Piero borrow a prayer bowl that was given to me by a Buddhist nun named Ani Choying, who's an incredible singer. She would just come and bring these gifts, and so I was very touched, and I had this very resonant prayer bowl, and thinking of her and thinking of what I wanted this piece to perhaps do for the listeners, I thought, well, there's a little bit of Ani in the piece now.
I'm kind of curious just how you thought about the relationship between the violin and percussion in this piece. Like, how do the parts interact?
In the first movement, really, it's in a way, it's a very traditional hymn with a call and response, right? And so you see that in the percussion is just this a lot of back and forth, and the violin is the lead voice. I'm using double stops to maybe think about male voices and tenors and basses and things, and then the high register is the women coming in and singing their part. And then the percussion is just kind of giving a response in a way. And in some of these services, whether it's the Maronite Church or these other Eastern churches, these kind of metallic ringing bell elements are used to signify certain moments in a service. So for me, that there's the connotation of an actual church service. In a way, Piero is playing the response of either the congregation or the sexton or something, kind of ringing and saying, we have to move on to this section or that sort of thing. In the last movement, Piero is very much the lead voice in a way, and so he takes the role of the hymn, the melody, and then the violin is providing this kind of I don't know, gossamer background or something. This texture that's kind of static but also moving. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you what it is. What is it like for the two of you to play it, and what? How do you kind of what do you feel when you're playing it?
I think that before I start the piece, I definitely try to get to a place of calm, so that the melodies, especially in the first movement, are just sort of happening this without any need to be moving forward, or just in a very calm, settled way. The second movement is a lot of fun. It's definitely keeps us on our toes, and it's fun how the two parts interact so intricately. The last movement is just um, it is a little bit more, I would say, physically, technically challenging, just to get that perfect sort of repetitive chordal pattern going without anything disrupting that. And so just trying to get to that, again, calm state, so that everything can just sort of roll off without without it sounding difficult.
Right. And you do that really beautifully. You give the illusion of calm, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it really, really comes across. And you know, and I have to share this, but I had sent the video to some friends, and I sent one to a wonderful Arabic violinist friend of mine who lives in Qatar, and he said she got the quarter tones just right. So so you so so that's, you know, I thought, and I agree with him. So it really came out, and so thank you, and I hope the Verdant Vibes audience will enjoy this performance
Yeah.
as well.